Hello, you are welcome to Company and Partnership Law class. Today, we will deal with Session 1 of Unit 4. Unit 4 is on shares. Session 1 of Unit 4 is on nature, types, and classes of shares. Session objectives. By the end of this session, you should be able to define what shares are, the features of shares, and should be able to list and explain the types of shares, and lastly, to distinguish between equity shares and preference shares. Shares. The first schedule of Act 992, which is the Companies Act, gives the definition of what share is. Shares mean the interests of members of a body corporate who are entitled to share in the capital or income of the corporate body. So the definition say that once you buy shares in a company or once you're a shareholder, the shares that you have in that company is your interest in that company in question. And because of that share, you are entitled to a portion of the income that will be derived by the company, and it will be issued or declared as dividend. The case of Macquarie v. Norton Assurance makes it clear that shareholders does not hold direct interest in the assets of the company. They only have interest in the stated capital of the company. In this manner, the property of the company belongs to the company alone, and no shareholder has interest in that or in those assets. They only have interest in the stated capital of the company. We want to look at nature of shares. Section 42 of Act 992 deals with the legal nature of shares. So, shares of a member in a company is movable property. In other words, you are saying that the shares of members in a company are movable property. Movable property, like these shares, are not like immovable property like land, but they are movable property that can be easily transferred. The number of shares in a company and the rights and liability attaching to the shares are dependent on the terms of issue. It means that once shares has been issued to you, your right depends on the number of shares that has been given to you. So the number of shares given to you will determine your liability and your rights. Every share that will be issued to you comes with its own liabilities and rights. And these liabilities and rights depends on the terms and conditions in which the shares were issued. Now, Section 43 of Act 992 indicates that shares shall be issued at no par value. Shares shall be issued at no par value. This simply means that the constitution of the company will not state a specific value for each shares of the company. The reason given by the fact that shares are not issued in a par value is that in reality the price of the shares depends on demand and supply. So it will be very misleading to give a specific value to the shares. So shares are issued at no par value simply because there is no specific value attached to the shares, and it will be misleading to attach a specific value to the shares. Because shares are not of par value or shares are issued at no par value, reference to share capital is not applicable in Ghana. So in Ghana, you don't have share capital. In Ghana too, because we issue shares at no par value, you don't have share premium account. Also, the no discount rule, which states that shares are not issued at discount, is not applicable in Ghana because we issue shares at no par value. It therefore means that it is possible in Ghana for us to issue shares at a discount. Features of shares. It is personal estate and not rare or immovable property like building. That's what we just discussed as it is also a movable property. Now, a share in a business confers its holder with interest, rights, and liabilities with respect to the company. So once you buy shares in a company, those shares are attached with interest, rights, and liabilities. The rights that are tied to a share of a business company are in respect of the entitlement to the shares in the capital or income of the company. So your interest is in respect of your entitlement, what you are going to get as far as the income of the company is concerned. Also, the right that are tied to a share of a company are set by the company's constitution and the terms of issue of the shares. So your right will be indicated by the constitution of the company. So where a company has a registered constitution, that constitution will tell you the right that is associated with those shares and the conditions as well. Your liability will be the potential losses. Your liability will be your potential loss as a shareholder to be contributed to the business of the company in the winding up. So when the company is winding up, your liability will be your capital that you have contributed to the business. So in the event of a share not having been fully paid, you'll be called upon to pay that shares as well. What you mean is that if you're a shareholder, your liability will arise when the company is going into financial crisis or winding up. Once you have paid for all your shares, you will only suffer or you will only lose the capital that you have contributed. However, if you have not paid for all the shares, then your liability will be the amount of shares that you have not paid upon receiving the shares. That is the unpaid amount. So for instance, if shares were issued to you 2,000 Ghana cedis and you have paid for 1,000 Ghana cedis, the remaining balance of 1,000 Ghana cedis is what you pay when the company is winding up. Also, a shareholder can enforce his or her right in respect of share by court action. Note, you can only enforce your right as a shareholder by court action. You cannot seize the assets or attack the assets or property of the business. So if dividends has been declared and you have not been paid, you cannot go to the company and seize any of the assets. What you do is that you bring court action to enforce your rights. Types of shares. We have two main types of shares. We have the preference shares and equity shares. Section 51, subsection 1 of the Companies Act 2019 at 992 gives us the definition of preference share. And preference share simple means that people have different name of people give different names to that particular type of share. But in simple terms, preference shares are shares that does not entitle the holder of that share to participate beyond a specific amount, whether in terms of dividends or by way of redemption or in the case of winding up. The holder of the preference share will not participate beyond a specific amount that is stated. Now, Any other share that is not preference share is an equity share. So the section 51 subsection 2 define equity shares as any shares that is not a preference share. So it means that when all the preference shareholders have paid, the remaining balance will go to the equity shareholders. For them, they don't have limits, provided that when all the necessary payments have been made, there are enough balance or enough income to be shared to them as dividend. Under preference shares, we have cumulative, non-cumulative, convertible, non-convertible, redeemable, and non-redeemable. Cumulative preference shares means that a shareholder whose share is a cumulative preference shareholder will be entitled to all dividends that will be declared and any outstanding balance that the company will not be able to pay in a particular year before any other shareholder is paid. So this is what we mean. If this year, for instance, if last year the holder of cumulative preference shareholder was entitled to 200 Ghana cedis, now the holder was only paid 90 cedis as dividend. The 130 was not paid, so it will be in an arrears. This year, if the company makes profit and dividends is declared, that outstanding balance of 110 will be brought to this year, and this amount will be paid before any other dividends will be paid to the shareholders, any other shareholders. So it will be added up. Now, non-cumulative, it means that once the company has declared dividends and it was not paid in the year in which it was declared, that amount cannot be carried forward to the next year. So it means that if they were not able to pay, that is the end. You can't receive it. Convertible preference shareholder. With convertible preference shareholder, this type of share has the terms of the issue of that share has an option for the holder to convert that share into equity shareholder. So it has an option for the holder of the convertible preference share to convert it into equity shares. We also have non-convertible. With non-convertible, there is no option for the holder of the share to convert it into equity shareholder. We also have redeemable preference shares. With redeemable preference shares, this is what we are saying. The law allows the company in which issued the shares to the shareholder to purchase or buy back that shares. And once the company wants to do so, the company should comply with the provisions of the Companies Act. We also have non-redeemable preference shares. It means that with this type of share, the company which issue cannot buy these shares back. By way of summary, we have noted that shares and debentures are instruments by which business company may raise funds. Shares are type of securities, and we mentioned the two types of shares, which are the equity shares and preference shares. We discussed issues of cumulative and non-cumulative, convertible and non-convertible, redeemable and non-redeemable preference shares. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.